It is hell to be in Ghana prison.
My journey into Ghana's prisons is to uncover the truth behind the alleged human rights abuse of prisoners. The condemned block of Nsawam Medium Security Prison is my first point of call. Prisoners here are serving life sentences and live under very restrictive conditions. I am at the condemned block, and we are going to talk to a couple of inmates to tell us how it feels like being a condemned prisoner. How is it like when you know that there is an activity in the main prison yard and then you cannot go there because you are a condemned prisoner?
You'll be hearing a noise over there at the other side and you cannot walk there. But you also find yourself or feeling within yourself that you are a human being. But as now, you are out of humanity. You are out of human beings. Totally being here, you are out of human beings. If you will say something to, you don't even cross over the wall.
Aya, a day in a court room.
Now, why am I fear to an army as a mania? Miss Uncle Jim feared to a night and come home. That's how my mammy knew I made no more 8 years later, 4 years on the woman.
I sought to find out more about conditions within the main prison, which is said to house over 4,000 prisoners, despite having the capacity for only 700 people. It is described as Ghana's most congested prison. It is massively overcrowded. As you can see at the Nsawam Medium Security Prison in the Eastern region, the situation is terrible. I decided to talk to a few of the inmates to ask them to tell me more about their lives and the conditions at the prison.
The condition here in prison is very terrible, completely terrible.
The prison is choked up. If you look at the number of the inmates now in the system, the prison is choked up. So we are pleading with the government and the judicial service to kindly come to our aid.
I've been here for sentenced to 3 years here in this place. And life here is something that you can't just imagine.
This is containing almost 60 people inside one cell, and the lowest sentence here is about 50 years.
I am not allowed to enter the cells, but from a distance, I witness for myself massive congestion in some of the cells. Most prisoners spend the night sitting. Others have to sleep on the floor. I could hear most of them groaning about how uncomfortable they feel, while the cell leader issues instructions for them to be arranged.
We arrange them. Pass inside, arrange them.
Hey, one bow.
They are packed like sardines. There is virtually no ventilation in the cells, so every night becomes more agonizing for inmates. They have to ward off the piercing heat with their shirts to survive the night. The aged are not spared the depressing ordeal. They have to compete for space with young and energetic inmates.
It's just one side now, that's a so sorry, say, jeans of that jeans also, jeans on us, baby, oh, no, without.
What we got as prisons from colonial masters were actually not purpose-built prisons. None. They were all forts and castles, warehouses, and armories for the Second and First World Wars turned into prisons. Some were even horses' stables. The case of Tamale, that was where they had horses trained and kept for the northern frontiers. So no prison we speak about that the colonial master handed over to us was a proper prison constructed, meant for human beings. They were meant for animals, they were meant for slaves, which were treated worse than animals. That's what we still have today, apart from the fact that we have added in Sawam and then Ankafu, Kitikrachi. The rest are still the same, given to us by the colonial master.
Toilet facilities within the prison are blocked, so inmates have to do with a makeshift toilet in the open with an offensive simmering stench.
We are suffering. There's no good condition at all here. Hygienic is zero.
The situations are very enormous. It puts pressure on the prison administrators and then prison officials. It's equally unbearable for the prisoners in our custody. You know, we have a responsibility to ensure their welfare, and that is one that also entails that where they sleep is equally have sufficient ventilation and sunlight. That is not overcrowded, but that is not the situation.
Then Sawam prison, just like Ghana's other 42 prisons, does not have a single disability-friendly facility for physically challenged prisoners.
Wa woni hu ade oba enye isi se nye obi na beba wakwa enye se members ya omo dwe omo time omo be fi ha akofie ayewe ya ebeden na wo a obi a.
We don't have disability friendly units or items in our prisons. It was built for the strong, fortified person. So if you bring a person with disability, once you have a warrant, it's our duty to accept you. Now the difficulty is, how do we handle you?
Food items brought into the prison for inmates by friends and relatives go through unhealthy checking processes because there is not a single scanner in any of the country's prisons. Officials have to use unsterilized instruments and their bare hands to determine whether the items pose a risk to the health of prisoners. I continued to the remand block, where inmates are usually held for many years without trial. A cell leader tells me he blames the police for the congestion at the facility and accuses them of bribery and corruption.
Most of the guys here have been given bail but are still here in the system.
Why?
After the bail or discharge, you are being compelled to be given over to your CID, to be sent to police station before you even have the chance of going home. And this compels the CIDs to be demanding huge sums of money from us. I am a victim myself. When we were discharged, the CID demanded 8,000 from us. We are 4 case partners. He demanded 8,000 in default of having it. This is how he tended us.
The police must be up and doing. They do the arrest, they gather information and intelligence, they do the investigation. So we want to advise. Now when they arrest culprits, investigation must be very speedy and they ensure that prisoners have their day in court for the judges to determine they are guilty or otherwise.
Sometimes the police claim that they cannot even find the docket of the accused person, which is not right. You cannot arrest somebody, put him behind bars, and claim that you cannot find his docket.
Accusations against the police also emerge on my engagement with female inmates at the prison. Vida has been on remand for 7 years without trial. She has become partially deaf because of severe beatings she claims to have received from the police.
Police station, a police phone na
You look at all these things and you wonder why we devote a whole chapter on human rights, and yet the violation of human rights goes on in this country and nothing is done about it.
As a police institution, Ghana Police Service, that has mainstream human rights in our training and our work, they should ensure that they don't do anything that will go against the human rights of the people they are supposed to serve. Because it is our duties and our responsibility to protect the very people of Ghana. And we don't do that by abusing them. So I would like to encourage them to go be professional and go according to the letter of the law and respect the human rights of the people. I must add that it's only a few who are really doing that. At times, if you don't take it, the few will portray or let people perceive that it's a whole organization or institution.
Most of the inmates are illiterate and have been convicted without any legal representation. Rose Gakpo is serving a 10-year sentence for a crime she claims she knows nothing about. She had no access to a lawyer and could not write her own statement. She had to rely on the police, who are often accused of not presenting a true account of events.
Enti nyabotre nyame ma wabotre enti judge no how many years?
10 years.
10 years. Now wo lawyer ni a obeka wasem ama wo. The police should not be blamed. As much as possible, the police, we are professional and we are doing our work according to our professional ethics. But if we are in the course of doing that, and something probably, at times, you know, language, the way you say it, and somebody also translating and writing it, if the person does not write it the way you want to, then you have to prompt the police. Say, I did not say it, or I don't mean that, so that the police will rephrase it to make sure the police write whatever you intend to say, because it's your duty. The police is only assisting you.
Most of the prisoners don't have the means to hire the services of lawyers. So you find that they need help, but they can't get help. As I said,
what are you doing for them?
What we are doing is, we will show you the way. We don't have the money, we don't have the means to hire a lawyer for you. It's out of our mandate. We will let you understand that this is your right. If you can pursue it, go ahead and do it. If you can even go to court, if you can sue the police service, if you can sue the person who has brought you in here for wrongfully arresting you, go ahead and do it. We teach them, we let them understand what their rights are whilst in prisons.
The publication about the services of legal aid, it's not high enough for people to know that they can access legal aid services when they cannot afford legal charges by lawyers.
The Department of Legal Aid Boards that should take pro bono cases for inmates, is that one functioning? Do we have lawyers prepared to come and do cases free of charge for prisoners? Your guess is as good as mine. It's no.
Beauty has been on remand for 18 months without trial because her prosecutor has been transferred. Having left her 4-month-old baby home, the pain of uncertainty cannot stop her tears.
A remand prisoner could be in prison on remand for sometimes about 8 years, 10 years, some of them even 15 years. And as a result, you know, they're even forgotten about by the very court that reminded them, and the prosecutor or the state attorney that caused them to be remanded into custody.
It could not necessarily be that they committed the offense. It could be that they didn't know how to talk in court or to get a lawyer to handle the matter for them, or maybe how they went through with respect to the police investigations that might have landed them there.
From Nsawam Prison, I continued my journey to the Senior Correctional Center, which houses juvenile offenders. The center is not as crowded as the main prisons, but its inmates complain bitterly about quality of the food served and other difficult conditions.
This is the Senior Correctional Center. This facility was built in 1947 with the aim of reforming and rehabilitating juveniles who find themselves in various acts of crime. The age range in this facility is from 13 to 21 years, and the current population is 156. Let's go inside and then talk to some of them.
Gary no abenkwan ne ba sabio nchene enim na nchene so kura be wom kura etware.
But prison authorities say the government should be blamed for the state of affairs.
People complain the food is not good, it's substandard. That is true. Again, we are supposed to feed the inmates 3 times a day. If an inmate is supposed to be fed with 1 cedi 80 pesos for 3 square meals, 1 cedi 80 pesos for 3 square meals a day is less than £1. And you're supposed to feed the inmate with this for 3 square meals. And the body that should give the money is not giving the money. If you turn around and blame the prison officer, I have a problem with that.
My next destination was the Wutukam prison to find out the condition of drug addicts.
Welcome to Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Talking to some of them, I could see the effects of withdrawal symptoms in their actions.
A gram of cocaine, as at that time, was almost about 800,000 to 850.
Which was a lot of money.
A lot as at then. So I buy 2 grams cocaine and I buy 1 gram of heroin. Heroin was very cheap. Was selling around 400, 500.
Did you mix it?
I don't mix it. The cocaine is a tranquilizer, and heroin is a sedative. So when I tranquil, which means it speeds the rate of reaction, but the heroin will sedate me to slow me down. So definitely after I use the cocaine, I have to sedate myself with the heroin just to be normal.
Cocaine, the way I'm a normal chair, me mum quite chilly, into me by a petty car donkey. Say a petty car donkey, no. And yes, I will be to do one, no. And I will shall back up, say, to say, yeah, cocaine, my head.
Some of them are problematic users. When I say problematic users, that is in the term that like we use every day, that they are addicts. Now, an addict who is on drugs and is arrested, you know, because they are addicts, the system is conditioned in a way that when you try to withdraw them from the drugs, they have what we call withdrawal symptoms. In our prisons, we do not have mechanisms to address these problems. When the person goes into withdrawal symptoms, the person can even die in prison.
Accused persons who are mentally challenged are usually convicted without any medical examination. I met with John, who is serving 2 years for stealing a laptop and a mobile phone. John suffers from a cognitive disability, making my interview difficult. He wouldn't utter a word to me, but kept gesturing. The prison does not seem equipped to support people with disabilities. It made me wonder why someone like John is in a prison, sharing the same facilities with other inmates.
Did he come in with that condition?
Well, because we don't take direct admissions. But when he got here, we realized that his behavior was not normal.
Was it not normal?
He walks quietly, he doesn't want disturbances, but he can't be walking if you don't take time. He'll just give you a slap without saying anything and walk away.
No, I don't understand. DSP, do you mean that he goes around at times slapping people without their knowledge?
Yes, he can do that.
What about if he wakes up one morning, takes a cutlass, and then, you know, causes havoc all over the place? As an institution, what are you doing to ensure that he seeks medical attention? What are you doing about it?
You see, if you look at our system, the way our systems are operated, there are no institutions where maybe mentally ill people are incarcerated, like in other advanced situations. Within where he lives, particularly the cell, as much as possible, we try to ensure that even within all cells, we ensure that there are no weapons that they can use to harm themselves. And everybody is careful. He is not just behaving by heart, but we know that he's not normal.
We don't do sentencing, we receive. These people who are brought into our custody, they have been to court, and the courts have assessed them. They should have gone to psychiatric homes. They should have been treated and not punished, and they hand down sentences to them. And we don't have the facilities.
There are no drugs to cater for inmates who fall ill at the prison, and no support for those who suffer from pre-existing conditions.
We send them to find they can have snake bites and other things. How do we treat them immediately? We have to rush them to hospital. Do we even have the means to immediately take them and send them to the hospitals? Or do we even have the immediate first aid before we can even carry them to the hospital? There's even a specific situation, one with a sickle cell. He had come here, we saw that he cannot work. But he is also telling us that this is the only place he can survive. And looking at the situation, where he sees that if we send him to the war prison, that he's even going to die there.
The Constitution says that the right to health is fundamental. It is a right to every human being. So why should the person be denied that right?
The British government has supported the Ghana Prison Service and the other agencies in Ghana's justice delivery chain with interventions that could curtail abuses of the rights of prisoners. But the former colonial power says it may not be in a position to continue offering the country a helping hand.
I think the important thing about prisons, and I know you yourself are a great expert in it, much more than I am, there is an old saying that to some extent you can judge a society by the way it treats its weakest members. And I'd include prisoners amongst that. There are, of course, some prisoners who have done terrible things. That's why they're in prison, sometimes for very long periods, but they still have their basic human rights and still deserve to live with dignity while imprisoned. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge for Ghana, for the UK, for everywhere, because to properly fund prisons, and we have plenty of problems in the UK, as you know, around prisons, resources are very finite. There are many demands on them, both within countries and, in this case, on the UK's aid programme, which will decline over time as Ghana becomes richer. It's already graduated from a developing or least developed country into a lower middle income country, and it's also something for this government, for any government, for the Ministry of Interior as a responsible line ministry to fight for, to ensure that there are adequate resources within whatever the budget is any given year to make sure that prisons are adequate for the prison population.
We need to depart from what our colonial master has given to us. They handed over something to us, including statutes and laws. They have gone past that. They have changed their laws to ensure that their prisons are now becoming correctional centers. We haven't done anything to that effect.
We need to do more of the sensitization, which we are aware and we are really doing it, but we are not there, but we will surely get there.
Despite these assurances, corruption seems to have become endemic in the country's justice delivery system. This implies that most prisoners will continue to be at the mercy of a tainted system, making mockery of Ghana's designation as the beacon of democracy in Africa and the champion of the rule of law. The only hope these prisoners say they have is for God to rescue them from the shackles of institutional abuses.
As a friend, you may not know me now,
said, but wait. You used to teach my Sunday school when I was only 8. And every week you said a prayer before the class will start. And one day when you said that prayer, I asked Jesus in my life.